So, how many people have actually heard of the startup methodology or the lean methodology at all? Hands up. Has anyone heard of the gentleman by the name of Eric Ries? All right, so this is Eric. Eric has actually written a really good book called The Lean Startup. If you haven't actually sort of come across it, I do recommend it. It is a really good, interesting read. And it's all about, the whole, there's traditional ways of running a business, and then there's the lean way. I think there's a really good middle ground there somewhere, because it's not all one way, it's not all the other way. You really do need to have a really good mix of things in terms of running a startup and going through the process. But what Eric has done really well is that he's made sure that in terms of the process that you go through, it's really clear, it's really simple, and I'm actually going to sort of talk through that in a minute. But at the end of the day, he's really strong about making sure that startups are successful in terms of being able to follow a process. And it means that in terms of what you learn, everybody can learn something. So if you can learn something, it can be taught as well. Now, everybody does learn very differently. Some people can learn in a classroom environment and sort of get a lot of theory. But what we try and promote as part of the whole program that we're running here is much more of a hands-on type of effect, because we just find that that's going to sort of stick with you a little bit better. So hence the reason why we have a little bit of theory in the master classes and then doing the hands-on in the workshops itself. All right, so what is this whole lean process? Well, there's 3 things to remember, and it's really simple. So the first thing is about ideas. So it's about generating the ideas, coming and bringing all sorts of the imagination to the forefront, being able to sort of really ask yourselves questions all the time. And it is an iterative process. So you're not always going to land on that great idea in that first instance. You really do want to sort of ask the questions. The second part of the process is then about building. So the whole thing around coming together with the ideas is to be able to actually build something that you can test really quickly. So the last thing you want to do, and probably more the traditional side of business, is how many people here have actually know about business plans? Yeah, so, and normally when you write a business plan, the really long documents takes you, 6 months to 12 months to write. You sort of write it, you put it on a shelf, and you kind of forget about it. And then by the time you've written it, everything that you've written there is probably old and outdated, and you almost have to review it again, and then it's another 12-month cycle. So it's really hard to get traction when you're going through that type of cycle. So, yes?
I think I may have thrown out a business plan that I did in the 1990s.
In the 1990s?
I can't find it, and now I regret throwing it out.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I might have thrown it out, say, 6 years ago, and now I think, I wish I could look at that.
Yeah. Look, I mean, it's not to say that business plans aren't any good, but when you're coming up with the new ideas and going through a startup mentality, it's really good to sort of have that startup iteration process in the forefront first. Once you've got that established and you're probably you've got some really good foundations around what the idea is, the problem you're trying to solve, who your market is, then I think it's actually worth writing a business plan. But I would probably take that route first before going the full-on business plan first. And what you'll find at the end of the day, and I'll introduce the framework a little bit later, is that we introduced this thing called the Lean Canvas and the Business Model Canvas, which is really a business plan on a page. And much of what you write on there can be translated into your full-on business plan. So I do think there is a place for a business plan, so don't get me wrong there. But I do think that, again, it comes to a combination of where do you find the fine line between traditional methods to this whole new lean startup method. And I don't think we can take the quantum leap between one extreme to the other. I think it really is a mirroring of the two. And again, every business is so different. I mean, we've had about 26 startups come through the Runway Geelong program now, accelerator program. And every team is so different. And they're at such different stages that you just need to be able to sort of customize to suit sort of various needs and stuff. So ideas, build, and then the last step is about data. So those are the 3 things you need to remember about the lean process. It's generating the ideas, being able to build something but to a minimum degree where you can test it, not to the full-on degree, so that you can actually collect the data that then feeds your idea again. So it really is an iterative process. And you'll see the iteration with respect to the next 3 bubbles that I will bring up now. So as you bring the ideas into play, you're going to start designing something. So whether or not it's a tech platform, or it could be a service that you're going to be designing, it could be a specific product, it could be something that you're sitting on. So whatever it is, you're going to have this idea, and then you're going to want to sort of start designing what that's going to look like. And some of the methods that we talk about in terms of the designing part is what we call design thinking. And that design thinking is more, again, the iterative process around asking the right questions, making sure you're really solving a problem, and then making sure that you're solving a problem for a particular customer to be able to actually design something. But you also want to design something that is going to give the customer what they want, but at a minimum capability, so that you can actually test it and build it, so that you can then start to measure what it is that you're capturing as part of that build. All right, so it is really important that as part of the whole lean process, that it is about testing it, collecting the data, and measuring it, so that at the end of the day, you're able to actually learn from the information you collect, and then feed it back into your original ideas, because you'll probably end up pivoting what that idea may look like, as well as what the original problem may change in terms of what you thought was the problem, and who you may have thought your customer base may be. All right? So that's, in a nutshell, what the whole lean process is all about. Now, I didn't want to inundate you guys with a whole lot of theory tonight, but I am going to leave time for questions at the end and have one-on-one more conversations, and I will be actually sending out the material as well. All right, so at the end of the day, the lean process is all about minimizing the total time through the loop, all right? Hence, that's why the whole iteration process is really important. Now, when people talk about design thinking, they get really confused, because design thinking is a framework, and it's no use just to sort of say, we're going to use a design thinking process. You have to apply it to a specific outcome, all right? So that's the whole thing, the confusion around design thinking. And a lot of people find design thinking really difficult, and the reason is because as we get older, we sort of lose our ability to ask a lot of questions and become a child again. And design thinking, to a large degree, is actually about becoming a child and basically asking yourself questions and questions and questions. I mean, how many people here have young kids? How many people have young kids that ask why? 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 That's what we need to do as an entrepreneur and as a startup with an idea, because we really do need to sort of test the theory and the thinking. So, and the reason why it's so important is because you want to minimize and shorten the time frame for how you actually build what we call a minimal viable product, which is sort of a condensed version of your end solution, so that you can go out and test it with your customers, get that feedback, and feed the feedback back into your ideas loop. So that's how that